a show of hands. How many of you have ever gotten lost? Turn to someone near you and tell them the craziest place that you've ever gotten lost. Maybe you were exploring with your friend in your neighborhood and got totally lost and you had no idea where you were or where you should go. Or maybe you were younger and you accidentally wandered off from your parents in a store, and the next thing you knew, your parents were nowhere to be found. Or maybe you've been on a road trip before and the person who was driving thought that they were going the right way, but then everyone realized it was absolutely not the right way and you ended up in the middle of nowhere. If you've ever gotten lost before, you might have found yourself in the moment asking, what am I supposed to do now? When you're lost, you want to do something to make the situation better or figure out where you're supposed to be. But a lot of times we feel a little helpless, like we don't know where to turn next. I think we all feel that way sometimes. What am I supposed to do now? For me, that's how I usually feel when talking about injustice. Remember, injustices are the things in our world that are unfair, unequal, and not right. They're the kind of things that happen to us and to others that make us think, somebody really should do something about that. And as we've learned over the last few weeks, not only does God care about injustice, but He calls us to work with Him to help bring justice. He challenges us to do something about it, to be part of the work that He is doing to make things right. And while that's really cool and even exciting, I think that if we're honest, it's also a little bit overwhelming. For starters, we sometimes feel like there's not a lot we can do about the injustices we see in the world. The big problems of poverty, racism, hunger, unequal treatment of people, cruelty, and crime, those things just feel like part of a never-ending battle against injustice. And at times, it truly feels like we can't solve big problems like these. Maybe you feel that way sometimes. Maybe you look at the injustices in the world and you feel a little hopeless. They've always happened and they're still happening, so there's not even a hope that they won't happen. Is there anything we can really do to change them? Or maybe you do have hope that things can change, but you don't feel like you can be part of the solution. You wonder if you can make a difference when it comes to such big problems in the world. Maybe you see injustices happening to people in your school or in your neighborhood, but you don't know what to do or say to help. After all, how much can one student actually do to change something like that, right? Maybe you're sitting there kind of feeling like you do when you've gotten lost before. You know injustice is out there, but you don't know what to do to help make it better. Or maybe you're the person on the receiving end of the injustice. You're dealing with it each and every day, and because of that, you know just how difficult actually doing something about it can be at times. Maybe you're someone who knows that it's happening, but honestly, it's not affecting you. And because of that, you're just not sure about what you're supposed to do about it. Maybe you're not even sure you want to do anything about it. Or maybe you have jumped in to do your part. You've spoken up and shown up wherever you've seen injustice, and maybe you've even seen some progress in your fight. But because of that, you know that the work to fight injustice isn't easy. In fact, it's really, really hard. You're not sure that you can keep going. You're not sure that you can stay in the fight because honestly, it's a lot. All of that, all of those thoughts, all of those things, I totally get them. Because you're right, standing up and doing something about injustice isn't easy. It is overwhelming. It is something that feels like somebody bigger or stronger or more powerful should be doing something about. It feels like somebody needs to do something about it, right? Well, here's what I want you to know today. You are somebody. And whether you realize it or not, I believe that you could be the somebody to start doing something and keep doing something about the injustice that you see and care about in the world around you. To help us out here, I want to talk about a guy named James. What's interesting about James is that he was actually the half-brother of Jesus. After Jesus died and came back to life, James became a leader of the early church. During that time, James wrote a letter to a group of Christians who were facing injustice in their world. And James wanted to encourage and challenge them. And he did so by saying this: "Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it?" Okay, so that sounds a little harsh. James was basically saying, hey, when you see an injustice, you have to do more than just offer a few words and walk away. You have to do more than just hope it changes. If you don't do anything to actually try and help, what good is it? I think this bold statement stings a little bit because, if we're honest, that's what we're all tempted to do sometimes. When faced with huge problems that we don't know how to solve, we often just settle for simple words over actual actions. We join the hundreds or thousands or even millions of people waiting for and praying for somebody else to actually do something. And if we're the ones hurting, sometimes we even give up hope that something can or actually will happen to make it right. But in that, we miss the opportunity God may be giving us to be part of the answer, to be that somebody who can do something. James went on to explain that as followers of Jesus, our response to injustice is directly connected to our faith. He said, "In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." James was saying here that our faith and our actions are connected. If we say we have faith, but it doesn't motivate us to do something, then something about our faith is dead. Something about our faith isn't quite right. And here is why that's a big deal. Living a life of faith is about becoming more like Jesus. And even if you've missed every part of this series so far, here's the part that I want you to always remember. When it came to injustice, Jesus was always doing something. And when we make the shift to allow our prayers and words to turn into action, we are becoming more like the person we are praying to. We're becoming more like Jesus himself. The things that make you feel sad or angry that you know aren't right, the injustices that motivate you to act, those things that hurt you and the people that you love, those things are wrongs in the world that God wants to see made right. And he created you and me to be the somebodies to do something about it. Not just to talk about it, but to be about it, to act on it, and to keep acting as a reflection of our faith in God who cares about injustice. Then others around us can see that God cares about injustice too. When it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. It may feel overwhelming, like our little actions won't have any effect on such giant problems. But small changes are still that, changes, and they're changes in the right direction. God tells us in his word that no matter how long the fight is, no matter how hard the battle is, we aren't to give up. The Apostle Paul wrote this: "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people." Don't get weary when you're doing good, Paul said. In other words, don't give up. Don't give in when the good work gets hard. Instead, keep going, keep working, keep fighting. Paul used farming language to make his point. And while most of us aren't farmers, it still totally applies to us. He said not to become weary of doing good because we'll get a harvest. That means that at just the right time, we'll see the benefits of the work that we've put in. Fighting for injustice is like planting a seed. You plant it and water it and give it sunlight and time to grow. Now here's the important part. You can't just plant the seed, water it once, and hope that it grows. No, you have to keep showing up to water it, to look out for it, and to check on it. You may not see much at the beginning, and you may not even think that a plant would ever sprout. But underground, a lot is happening, and at the right time, the plant will pop up, and eventually it will be a harvest time. It's the same with injustice. Even if you don't see any change right at the moment, don't get discouraged. Don't grow weary. You are making a change. Some of that change might happen right away. It may not be visible at first, but God is working in ways you might not be able to see. So don't give up. Keep doing good to all people. When it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. Remember the dominoes from previous weeks? We started setting up a domino path to show us how we can do something when it comes to injustice. We have the power to set off a chain reaction when it comes to fighting injustice. But we can't take action without first taking time to set things up. A few weeks ago, we said that before an action can happen, we have to see the injustice. And we've learned that God is doing something about injustice by using each of us. So today, we're reminded of another important thing when it comes to injustice, that we should never stop doing something. Doing something about injustice can't just be a box that we check off. It can't be a one-time thing. We can't be the somebody who does something once and never does it again. If we want to be people who show others that God cares about injustice, we have to keep caring. We have to keep acting. And we have to keep working together. When it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. God calls us to a lifelong attitude of justice and continued action as we live out our faith. We might not be able to change everything, but we can do something. Maybe you're already doing something, or maybe you're not sure where to start. Well, here are a few ways that we can all keep doing something about injustice. The first one, use your voice. Speak up. Say something when you see it. Share about it on social media. Talk to a friend about that injustice that you are moving to act on. Start a conversation with a teacher or an adult who can help you in your fight against that injustice that you might be experiencing. We may not all have the power or money or platform to make big changes, but we do all have a voice to speak up when an injustice is happening. And when we speak up, not only are we telling those around us that we care about the injustices happening and the people that they're happening to, but we're also showing others that God cares about it too. The second thing we can do is use our influence. All of us have some influence. Maybe you're popular at school. Maybe you're a leader on your team or in your small group. Maybe you have a younger sibling or a neighbor who looks up to you. Whatever influence you have, use it to help others see the injustices that you care about. Use it to educate and use it to encourage others to act alongside of you. The third thing is you can use your talent. You don't have to give up on basketball or dance or whatever that thing is that you're good at. You can use that talent that God has given you to shine a light on an issue and inspire others to act. If you're not sure what that looks like for you, ask God to show you. And then think about what you're good at and what you like to do. If you're good at playing the piano, maybe you could teach someone how to play who could use a friend right now. Or maybe if math is a strong subject for you, you could tutor someone who is studying to understand but can't afford a tutor. Maybe even start a conversation in your small group about it today. The people in your small group are there to encourage you to live out God's best for your life. So ask them what talents they see in you and brainstorm ways that you can use those talents in the fight against injustice together. And the fourth thing is to use your time. And we're not talking about one service project or signing up as a volunteer a few times. Injustice is everywhere, and it will stay that way if we don't keep acting. Part of following Jesus is making a commitment to do something and to keep doing something. So make the work about injustice more than just a one-time thing. Make it a lifelong goal. Keep showing up, keep giving, no matter what. Don't give up on the fight. Because when it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. Maybe you've never thought that God cares about injustice. Maybe you never realized that it's out there and impacting the lives of people you know. Maybe you've never thought that you could be a part of the solution. Or maybe you lost hope that God still cares about you and the people that you love who are hurting. My prayer for each one of you is that your eyes would remain open to see injustice in the world around you, that your heart would be moved to act, and that you would stand with others so that they don't have to experience injustice alone, and that you would make injustice a cause that you take up for the rest of your life. Because I believe that you can be the generation that makes this kind of change that lasts, the kind of change that makes this world a better place for all of us. I believe you are the generation who can do something. Can you imagine if everyone in this room chose to do something with their voice, their influence, their talent, and their time? If we chose to care about and keep fighting against the injustice that we see around us and in the world, I think it could cause a domino effect that could change the world. When I think about what could happen, I get so excited about the change that could make this world better for everyone in it.